The night the leak in her old apartment flooded my phone with a text from a number I'd half forgotten how to feel about. I was 3 time zones away from where she'd run to. Eating cereal for dinner like a man with no one to disappoint, and the screen lit up with 11 words that undid 2,000 miles of careful distance. It didn't work. I'm coming home. I read it twice, then I set the spoon down very carefully, like the bowl might bolt. I should back up. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 36. I install and repair commercial HVAC systems, which means I spend my days in the ceilings and basements of buildings full of people who never think about air until it stops moving. I'm good with my hands and bad with endings. I live in the same city I grew up in an apartment I've never quite finished decorating, like I'm leaving room for someone to disagree with my choices. Her name was June Okafor. She was a cartographer, which I didn't know was still a job until she explained that someone has to decide where the lines go. She drew maps for a living and got lost constantly in real life, a contradiction she refused to acknowledge. She had a laugh that arrived a half-second late, like it had to clear customs first. She kept a fountain pen clipped to the inside of her collar, always, even at the gym. Even asleep on my couch, a heavy brass thing her grandfather had used, scratched to gold underneath the black. She tapped it against her teeth when she was deciding something, which meant for 2 years my apartment clicked faintly whenever she thought too hard. We met because she walked into the wrong building for a job interview, found me elbow deep in a rooftop condenser unit, and asked me for directions to a company that had moved out a decade earlier. I drew her a map on the back of a work order. She told me it was wrong. It wasn't. She framed it anyway years later, but that comes later. We were friends. That was the word we'd agreed on, the safe coordinate. She came to my place on Sundays with coffee from the place that overcharged. I helped her hang the maps that papered every wall of her apartment, the real ones and the invented ones, whole countries she'd made up because no one had asked her not to. I told myself the friendship was the whole continent and not just the coastline of something bigger. I'm very practiced at telling myself things. You learn to seal the ducks where the cold gets in. The job offer started it. It came in October. A museum across the country, a real position drawing the maps for their permanent collection. The kind of thing she'd wanted since she was a kid, tracing rivers off the back of cereal boxes. She told me about it on my couch, the pen clicking against her teeth, and I did the worst thing a person can do at a moment like that. I was happy for her, out loud, generously. I helped her weigh it. I told her she'd be an idiot not to go. "You're not going to tell me to stay," she said. It wasn't quite a question. "Why would I tell you to stay?" She looked at me a second longer than felt safe. Then she looked away too quickly and clicked the pen once and said, "Right, no reason." And I filed that in the wrong drawer, the way I'd been filing things about June for 2 years. That was the crack, not the offer. The no reason. She left in November. I helped her pack, which is a special kind of self-harm, wrapping someone's whole life in newspaper and pretending it's a normal Tuesday. The maps came down off the walls and the apartment got bigger and sadder with every empty rectangle of brighter paint where a country used to be. At the bottom of a drawer, she found my old work order, the wrong right map I'd drawn her the day we met, and she went still. Not dramatically, just still. She didn't say anything. She put it in her coat pocket, next to the pen, and I decided it didn't mean anything. It smelled like newspaper and her hand cream, and the inside of her coat, when she hugged me goodbye at the airport and held on one beat too long. And I drove home and ate cereal for dinner and told myself the air in my apartment felt exactly the same. It did not feel the same. I am a man who fixes the movement of air for a living, and I noticed, immediately, that mine had stopped. She texted, those first weeks, photos of the new city, the museum, a burrito she was outraged by. I texted back, "We were good at this, the long-distance version of the coastline, careful not to sail inland." I told myself this was sustainable, that I liked it this way, that 2,000 miles was a manageable amount of not saying anything. Then the texts got shorter. Then they got further apart. Then one Sunday she didn't text at all, and I sat with my overpriced coffee from the place she used to bring and understood that she was doing it on purpose, that she was drawing a new map of her life and leaving me off it, and that this was probably the kindest thing either of us could do. Her sister called me in January, June's sister, who I'd met twice. "I'm not supposed to tell you this," she said, which is how all the good information arrives. But she's miserable. She moved across the entire country to get over something, and the something followed her. She won't say your name. She just keeps redrawing the same map and throwing it out. A pause. I think she went the wrong direction, Marcus, and I think she knows it. I held the phone in my unfinished apartment and didn't say any of the things rising up in me, because they weren't mine to say. She'd made a choice. I'd helped her make it, generously, like an idiot. That is hiding with better branding. The leak was what broke it open, which is almost embarrassing. Her old apartment, the empty one, lease not yet ended, had a pipe give out in the unit above, and the management company had my number listed as her local contact because I'd helped her move and signed for a delivery once. They called me to let them in, so I stood in the gutted shell of June's old life, water coming through the ceiling in a slow brown bloom, the brighter rectangles on the walls where her invented countries used to hang, and I took a photo of the damage to send her because she needed to know, and I typed something stupid and practical. Your old place is leaking. Thought you'd want to know. Hope the new maps are going well. And I stood there in the wet plaster smell of somewhere she didn't live anymore, and I almost didn't send the second part. But I have poor survival instincts around women who make up countries, so I did. The apartment's too quiet without you arguing with my directions. I drew you wrong on purpose so you'd have to come back and correct me. That part's a joke. The quiet part isn't. I sent it before pride could catch it. Then I put my phone in my pocket and helped the plumber and tried to forget I'd done something with consequences. She didn't answer for an hour. Then, too, I told myself I'd misjudged the whole coastline, sailed straight into the rocks. I was deciding very calmly whether I could pretend I'd been hacked. Then the screen lit up, 3 time zones to my right, while I ate cereal for dinner. It didn't work. I'm coming home. I read it twice. Then a second text arrived, faster than the first, like the sentence had been sitting behind her teeth for 2,000 miles and finally slipped out before she could clip the pen back to her collar. I moved across the country to forget you. I drew 40 maps of that city and I put you on every single one. A street named after you. A river. I kept doing it. I'm a professional, Marcus. I make maps for a living and I cannot make one of my own life that doesn't have you on it. So I quit pretending. I'm coming home. You don't have to do anything about it. I just couldn't let you think the quiet was mutual. I called her. She'd picked up on the first ring, which told me everything. Because June never picked up on the first ring, June screamed God himself. You don't have to come back for me, I said, because I needed her to choose it with her eyes open, and not because a leak and a lonely man had cornered her across a continent. If it's the job, if you love the work, stay. I'll mail you the wrong maps. I'll keep being the coastline. You ran for a reason, and I'm not going to be the reason you stop running if running's what you need. Say the word, and I never sent that text. She didn't take the door. There was a long quiet, the kind with water in it. I changed your name in my phone the day I left, she said, quietly. The biggest thing she ever said arrived a half-second late, like they'd cleared customs. I saved you as North, because every map needs one fixed point you orient everything else against, and I kept turning the page to get away from you, and the needle kept swinging back. I told myself I moved for the job. I moved because I was a coward who couldn't say the thing standing in your living room, so I'd say it from 2,000 miles where it was safe to fail. Her voice dropped. It wasn't safe. It was just far. Those aren't the same thing. The pen clicked faintly against her teeth. I could hear it across 3 time zones. I never finished decorating this place. I said, and my voice came out rougher than I planned. 2 years. People kept asking why my walls were empty. I told them I hadn't decided. That's a lie I told so smoothly I almost believed it. I made myself say the specific thing, the earned thing, not I love you, because that was too small for the distance it had to cross. I left the walls empty because they were the wrong walls without your maps on them. I've been waiting to disagree with where you'd hang things. When you left, my apartment didn't get emptier. It just stopped pretending it had ever been full. I breathed. Come home. Correct my directions. You were right. The map was wrong. I drew it wrong so you'd come back. I just didn't know that's what I was doing until you were already gone. She made a sound that was half a laugh, arriving late as always, and half something with more water in it. North, she said, like she was finally allowed to. That's a lot of pressure for one guy. You'll manage. You're very stable. It's annoying. She came home 11 days later. I picked her up from the airport and she held on one beat too long, the way she had leaving, except this time, neither of us let go on schedule. The pen was still clipped to her collar. The wrong right map was still in her coat pocket, soft now from being carried 2,000 miles and back. 3 months later, her invented countries were on my walls, all of them, the real maps and the made-up ones, and I disagreed with the placement of every single one, which she informed me was the entire reason she'd come back. A year after that, I came home to find she'd drawn a new map and framed it over the couch. Our city accurate in every street except one, where she'd added a river that didn't exist and named it after the day we met. "It's wrong," I told her. "I know," she said, smug as anything, pen clicking against her teeth. "Now you have to keep me around to fix it." She still got lost in real life. She still oriented her whole sense of direction off a man who couldn't reliably find his own keys. Nothing about her contradictions had resolved. I'd stopped wanting them to. Years later, when people ask how we ended up together, and they ask because the framed wrong map over the couch begs the question, June says she moved across the country to forget me and accidentally proved it couldn't be done. I say she walked into the wrong building looking for a company that didn't exist and never really left. She says I was her north. I say she was the one who finally stopped redrawing the map to avoid the one place she wanted to be. Nothing important had appeared overnight. It had simply stopped hiding. What would you have done if the person you ran 2,000 miles to forget texted you that it didn't work and they were coming home? And have you ever called a distance freedom when it was really just the longest way of not saying the thing? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.